It feels almost like the Transformers movie I wanted in the first place. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Alright, let's Talkathon. You know, back in the day I was well into films, but these days I only tend to bother with the big, stupid, loud nerd movies. You know, like Godzilla, and Pacific Rim, and Monuments Men, and of course, Transformers 4. So I'm going to do a thing, like a talky thing, like not really a review, but more like a list of things that I thought about Transformers 4. Now I get that a lot of people hate these films, like they hate big dumb summer movies, they hate Michael Bay, they hate intellectual properties from the 80s and 90s being repurposed into big stupid noise fests. So if you already hate those things, you will hate this movie. Mark Commode will hate this movie. But generally I don't mind big dumb summer movies, and they don't come much bigger or dumber or summerer than Transformers. So let's check out the cast! Being as this one's more of a reboot than a sequel, absolutely zero of the original human characters come back. So no Shia, no Meg, no Rosie, no parents, no army guys, no Simmons, no Linkin Park. No explanation offered, we're moving on. I think the general consensus is that Mark Wahlberg's a bit less problematic than Shia because people seem to hate him less. He's a basically acceptable standard male lead, but his character, Cade Yeager, seems a bit schizophrenic. Like he's meant to be this weird, eccentric, shut-in inventor guy, but he looks like a quarterback, and later on in the movie he actually wins a fist fight with sports. Still, I suppose he does alright as the working class hero we're not really here to see. Jack Rayner's on board to play generically handsome young dude named Shane, who's a secondary, generally acceptable standard male lead with his weird, sort of Irish, sort of American accent, and his insider knowledge of all the improbable, convenient jump ramps in town. TJ Miller shows up as a sarky surfer man who continually says how scary everything is. Am I supposed to have heard of these people? Nicola Peltz plays Mark Wahlberg's daughter, who is a girl, and like whinges at the dad and Nicola Peltz is a girl who is the daughter who has to get rescued and screams a lot and whinges, and like it's always lingering on her legs and it's a bit weird. Kelsey Grammer is thoroughly lovely, but when is he not? He's this cartoonishly evil supervillain who's always spouting off about freedom but hates civilians and only cares about cash. Stanley Tucci plays a guy who isn't Steve Jobs but is my second favourite thing about the movie after Hound. And Li Bingbing plays a passable CIA agent or something who, shock, knows kung fu. Is that racist? It feels racist. Nobody's really bringing their A game. They're all just sort of getting on with it and just doing the best with the brainless drivel they've been asked to work with. And for the most part, getting away with it. I was totally waiting for a cheeky Morshower cameo, but no, barely any military guys at all, in fact. It's all plucky civilians and shady PMCs. And a lot more focus on the robots! So look, if you're still mad that the robots aren't like the robots from Generation 1, get over it. It's been 7 years. And look, the G1 guys are still there. There they are, look, see, they're all still there. They haven't crumbled into dust. Your video still works. It's all fine. Everything's fine. So if these aren't the Transformers you want, you don't have to engage with them. But I will agree that in the past the robots have looked a bit of a mess. But this time around the designs are far more distinct and colourful, and you can totally tell them apart. They get way more screen time, they get more dialogue, and they even get a bit of character development. The focus is still heavily on Optimus, and like his new design doesn't really look like it could turn into a truck. Optimus is slightly more believable this time. I mean, he's always been a cranky murdery guy, but like now he seems a little bit more sympathetically beleaguered. Although before he was all, "No, Ironhide, we don't harm the humans." And now he's like, "We don't harm the humans unless I get really, really pissed off." Anyway, like I was saying, the other guys get a lot more time to shine in this one. So there's Crosshairs, who's this bright green desperado guy with this wicked, like, Fields of the Nephilim jacket going on. Hound is a big fat dynamo with John Goodman's voice who just totally steals the show. Bumblebee's hanging out doing Bumblebee stuff. But I'd like to talk, if I may, about Drift for a moment. Now, I wasn't crazy about Drift from the comics and that, but he was sort of interesting and fresh, and it was at least a talking point that he brought a bit of, like, Japanime influence into the franchise. But the movie guy is, like, the least imaginative Japanese robot design I could possibly think of. It's like the designers heard on the grapevine that there was this Japanese-inspired robot called Drift and just boiled him down to the most obvious, lowest common denominator Japanese thing they possibly could. He's just a robot samurai. I can't help but imagine a pre-production meeting where the Hasbro guys were like, "Well, how about we use Drift? He's a cool Japanese-looking robot." And the movie crew are all like, "Oh, Japanese, like a samurai." Not really. It's more like something out of Gundam or Patlabor. You know, like with smooth edges and vents and swords and little spiky new and... Oh, right, so like a samurai. Oh, and he should call Optimus Sensei. That'd be funny. Oh, and guys, Ken Watanabe. But apart from the design, he's actually quite a lot of fun, and he gets the best gag in the whole thing, and And spoiler warning. He's a triple changer. Dinobots are basically this movie's shockwave, especially considering how much they've been used in the bloody hype. They're in it for like the last 8 minutes, but for the time they're around, yeah, they're pretty good. As for the baddies, I kind of love Lockdown. He's a little bit awesome. He's got this weird, horrible human face and this creepy, just black, massive body. He even gets his hand claw thing, which is a total bonus. He's not really developed much more than, like, I am the bad guy. But he gets a lot of screen time and plenty of dialogue, and we get that he's the baddie, and he is quite scary, so, you know, that's kind of more than we ever got with Megatron. I thought Galvatron was a bit of a letdown. He gets a couple of fun scenes, like a cool car chase and a bit of a battle with Optimus. He's got a cool looking truck mode. He's Frank Welker. And he's Megatron in a new body, which I believe is called Throwing the G1 Fans a Bone. When they were going over his backstory, though, I was like, it's gonna kick off now. But it didn't really. He was mostly just the leader of the generic cannon fodder guys. What else is weird with the villains is they're never around at the same time, which kind of smelled a bit of two scripts being smashed into each other. Other than Lockdown and Galvatron, though, it's all just nameless drones, which is okay in a movie like this, ain't it? At least they all look good and they all do their job and they're not robbed from the other movies this time. So that's pretty much your characters. And as for the things that actually happen in the movie, I was going to do a section about the bits that I liked and another section about the bits that were bad, but I don't know if that would have come across right, so I'm just going to do a big section called Stuff That Is Annoying, But Also I Love It. And spoiler warning. So, in a shocking twist, the movie opens with something other than an Optimus Prime monologue. I know! But as soon as he shows up, he can't go 10 seconds without going, "My name is Optimus Prime." And everyone in the cinema laughed. And I'm like, oh, thank God they get it. Obviously, being a movie about robots from space, the plot was always going to be totally implausible. And following on from the absolute closure of Dark of the Moon, where all the baddies and Cybertron were destroyed, I reckon they did a pretty good job of creating a new threat within this universe. Like, they're pulling bits from past Transformer lore here and there. And I was surprised by how much it was inspired by animated. I mean, the first thing Lockdown does is face off with Ratchet, and we see Megatron's head in a lab being worked on by an unwilling scientist, and Hound is totally just trigger-happy bulkhead. There's still tons of annoying Michael Bay stuff cracking off. There's a scene early on that's just two guys talking, and I swear it's shot entirely in low angles. Someone makes a really forced meta joke about remakes and sequels, then somebody makes a joke about diapers. Tons of bad ADR. I'm just gonna turn away for a minute. Oh, my arsehole is so fat! And I'm back. That thing still happens where it's like, oh, cool robot fight. They're gonna do a robot. Hey, get that out of the way. Get that out of the way. Oh, he's dead and that guy's a car now. Well, that would have been fun to watch. Everything still happens super fast, so you have to put your brain into, like, hyper watch mode. But generally speaking, there's not too much camera shake going on, and you can generally tell who's fighting who. Of course, you've got the obligatory product placement and cutesy Americana nonsense, especially when they're at the farm. It's like 100% sappy family time, Budweiser, flags, sunsets, and weird banter about statutory rape. There's this really long, weird, unfunny scene about the age of consent, and it's like, is this okay? There's also some really long car chases with like awesome robot battles happening in cutaways. I get that they're teasing for the big finale later on, but you know, we've done the trailers. I've bought my ticket. I'm sitting in the cinema now. Let's have it. It also doesn't help when the people say such bewilderingly stupid things. We should drive into the cornfield to try and lose them. Oh, is that what's happening? Thanks. By and large, though, the action is pretty spectacular. Like, there's quite a long scene on Lockdown ship that's just great fun, and there's a bit of world building going on, and these dumb googly eye robots. All the stuff with the Dinobots, even though it's a bit abrupt, it's still great. The main Hong Kong battle just rocks. There's quite a neat foot chase on top of an apartment block. Yeah, a lot of neat visual stuff going on. As we mentioned, the robots all look really cohesive and the effects are like flawless. Most of the bad guy robots have this like new style transformation that just looks awesome. Everything just looks spot on. As well it bloody should for a $210 million budget. It does seem a bit cheeky in certain places though. Like there are bits that just feel like parts from the other movies done from a different angle. Like there's a highway chase scene where they're riding in one of the Autobots who jumps and transforms and all the people are flying, whoa! And then like he catches them and transforms back and it's all fine, which totally happened in the last movie. Oh, and there's also this battle scene in Chicago which has like the same hovercopter thing from the third one and like all the same landmarks like that bridge and the clock tower, and it's all a bit deja vu-y. And there's a bit where they try and hide the MacGuffin from the bad guy by going to the roof even though the bad guy can fly. And it wouldn't be a modern action movie without the odd bewildering out-of-the-blue location change. I swear at one point Stanley Tucci's like, I'm gonna go to China now. Bye. And then, like, we're in Beijing for one scene, and then Li Bingbing's like, I might go to Hong Kong, you come in. Before taking a very long sip of branded water. I gotta say, the movie totally benefits from the lack of army porn. Like, before it was all badass Humvees and cool monitors and army guys being awesome. But this time, all that stuff is the bad guys. I imagine Johnny 12-year-old coming out of the other ones thinking, right, I'm gonna go and get a bumblebee and then I'm joining the army. But this time it'd probably be more like, well, I'm gonna buy a hound and then totally not become a creepy Black Ops guy. Okay, I'm going to talk about the ending now, so spoilers! So, the MacGuffin thing is called the Seed, right? And it's established that this thing will explode and turn everything for miles around into a metal called Transformium. Anyway, there's a kicking final battle scene where, like, all the guys have to do some teamwork to help Optimus beat the bad guy, rather than just standing there and waiting for him to kill everything. Anyways, afterwards he says, right, I've got this thing from Lockdown, let's blow it up and kill all the baddies. And you're like, what? No! And then all the guys huddle around and he protects them and you're like, is he gonna really shield them from the devastating citywide metal blast we've been trying to prevent the whole movie? But then he just flies away and the thing explodes and the baddies die and nothing else bad happens. And then there's a quick we did it scene and then Optimus Prime flies off into space. And you're like, so that thing you blew up wasn't the Seed? And you're just gonna let the Dinobots loose on Earth? Are you insane? And what about Galvatron? I mean, you do see him going, oh, I'll get you next time. But wait, Optimus can fly? And he's going to go and meet his creator and what, punch him out? What is this, Prometheus? But with the way they've left it, there's definitely going to be another one, and I, for one, am fine with that. Loved it. Loved it. I've now realised that all I've done in this video is just compare it to the other ones. As a movie on its own, I'd say it pretty much stands up. You get enough information about the previous movies to understand what's going on, and dare I say it, it feels almost like the Transformers movie I wanted in the first place. I don't think there's necessarily any political agenda behind it. Maybe I'm being naive for saying that, but I certainly didn't take anything away from it other than if you beat up your friends, they won't like you anymore, and also please buy all the toys. This movie made me want a Hound figure so much. So yeah, I'll take a Hound and a Galvatron and an evasion mode Optimus and all the Dinobots. So if they could be released on this continent, that'd be lovely. Anyway, I might go to Hong Kong now.